So, like you guys, I definitely watched the debate live, and I'm assuming that most everybody here did. If you didn't, I'm kind of shocked that you're even watching my content and you just didn't want to be part of it. Because, number one, it really was the most watched simulcast of anything. I mean, this it blew the Super Bowl out of the water specifically because you had so many other channels covering the same feed, but which does bother me just a little bit where like full disclosure, on YouTube, they gave us all they gave any of us warnings that were, we were looking to do the live stream and a few guys figured it out and they also just took some risks that I'm not willing to take as a smaller channel. Um so they were kind of like, yeah, you can't really watch the debate live, which great. That's, awesome. Where you can give it to every other cable network. You could even give it to C-SPAN, which they are kind of like the public access for us. And then you could still say, nope, copyright. And that it's absolutely ridiculous. You couldn't even do the audio. So I decided what I wanted to do instead is once it was done, they don't seem to care anymore. Now they're just putting it out and everybody's, doing their own analysis of the debate, which I'll just give my quick, just my thoughts. It it was a great debate as far as for Kamala because she just cornered him, and the few times that he did take the bait from her, it was the ones that like his campaign was just like, please don't, and it was just mm, chef's kiss. She did very very well. However, I do think that it didn't start off the best. And on top of it, Jon Stewart made a pretty funny joke on The Daily Show about how we're back to the era of not answering the question, which um, that definitely happened. And you know what? I understand it though, because somebody had explained that because they didn't do a like opening statements, they had to kind of get their opening statements out after the first question. So that's kind of why it started to look that way. But um, it did kind of play into the debate even like later, specifically like when Trump was responding, and then there was the whole thing where they were turning his mic on to give him a response after everything that she said. But then the like few times that she tried, where she's like, "Excuse me, can I?" and they were like, "No, we have to move on." That kind of annoyed me, and it also didn't make the news look any better. It also didn't play into the whole Trump narrative of it's completely unfair, completely unbiased. He got 6 minutes, give or take, more time than she did because I think that the final count at the end of it was she had 38 minutes, he had 42 minutes. So take that for what it is. Alrighty, well, let's go through it because why not? All right, well, we're going to do this at 1.25 speed just so it goes a little bit quicker than it did last night. And I'm more than likely going to skip some portions just because, yeah, I don't want to really include the boring stuff. Do you guys want the boring stuff? Who wants boring stuff? Come on, it's politics. Right out the gate, though, he had absolutely no intention to going over to that side, and she beelined. So the optics of this, very good.
Hello, Harris. Let's have a good debate.
See you. Have fun.
Thank you.
I mean, and it was kind of funny because you could tell that he went into like a little bit of business mode where he was just like, "Oh, it's a hand. Yeah, you like I just shake anybody's hand. I mean,
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
okay. I'm only gonna make this joke once because I'm sure that it's been memed to hell. But what's with the shoulder pads? Look, okay. I grew up in the 90s. Shoulder pads, totally a thing, right? I mean, they were the thing. This? Sorry. this? This is... She looks like a Saiyan. If you don't know what a Saiyan is, it's Bob. Bob from Beetlejuice. She looks like Bob from Beetlejuice. Like, look at her. Those are the biggest shoulder pads I have ever seen. Where are her actual shoulders?
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country.
Just another thing that women have to do to project power because men don't respect them unless they got those big, broad shoulders.
Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe America?
Objectively, I'm just going to say that David Muir is probably one of the best looking broadcasters like in any of news. Him and Anderson Cooper definitely have that like little bit of that, ooh, look at us.
Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition,
Oh, this is so much easier to listen to when it's sped up.
the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people.
Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about. This was her planned opening statement, and he asked a totally different question.
We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan
Not sure if you guys had the second mom situation. I did.
is to give a $50,000
My best friend's mom was she would get weirded out if I just didn't like call her mom too. So
tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods.
I mean, this was good, but
That you rely on to get through
I
the
don't think
month.
that she did a great job
Economists have said
of saying why.
that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all
that's
that
what
we've
I'm
done
talking
for the
about.
world. And
Right there. That's like in her notes, she should have been like, and just break down what tariffs are and how they work, because this idea that Donald Trump has been able to completely like redefine what a tariff is to the American populace is kind of scary, because they don't understand that you're still going to buy these products that are made in China. Like this whole everything is made in America is a fallacy. So this is going to be a tax on the lower and middle class because we're the ones buying these goods.
the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in
Yeah, and then that gets passed down to us. So thank you for the extra tax.
billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had
See, he did start well. I'll even give him that. He projected the strength that is perceived, that he has as this perceived strong man. I've thought that was weird too, where it's just like, dude, he's the biggest whiner ever. He wouldn't just say he lost. To this day,
had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries.
it breaks up countries.
Inflation like
It's a
very few
country
people have
buster.
ever seen before. Probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be
They're taking the black jobs, the black and the Mexican jobs.
affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado.
You know what? It's funny because this went so viral. I forgot that it happened so quickly in the debate.
They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again, and even.
It is sad because I watched one of the little polls afterwards where they had a whole bunch of, like, what do you call them? The things where they get the people, the town halls. Like it was like a mini town hall where, or a focus group, not town hall. What am I talking about? A focus group. They had two of them. They had actually, I watched one on MSNBC and then I watched another one on CNN, and both of them were actually kind of fair to Trump, where two of the guys on the MSNBC one said that they were still going to be voting for Trump, that, you know, they weren't going to be swayed anyway. But one of them did say, is just like, I didn't know anything about, I had no idea who Kamala Harris was. And then he's like, yeah, you know what? She does have some, you know, if the numbers match up, he's like, I'm going to have to do some research because those numbers seem like they're actually going to affect me personally, as opposed to these, you know, if you tax the billionaires, they're going to come after you next. Come on, guys.
Even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald
Again, this would have been the perfect time to lay out what a tariff is.
Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but running on him leaving us the COVID thing, his supporters already don't, like, they already think that he handled COVID fine. And the independents, most of us are, well, them now. I mean, I used to be an independent, but now I've just admitted it, where I'm just like, no, I'm a leftist Democrat, like, whatever. I think that they honestly kind of see through this shit too, so it's kind of like, why even focus on it too much?
Unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health
He did.
epidemic in a century. Donald Trump.
It's gonna go away, and then
Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all, in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that
I know nothing about it. I only hired all the guys who wrote the
the
thing.
former president intends on
He used to
implementing
work
if he
for
were
me. I don't
elected
know.
again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us, and I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas.
See, now this is the weird part where they give him a minute to respond. Nothing. They move on to the next question.
I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create.
And that kind of flies in the face of the fact, because like at the beginning of this, he chose to go last to have his question asked last. So this kind of flies in the face of like giving her any like the benefit of going first and being asked, or like not going last. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Like they broke the mold to make sure that he just always has the ability to say something, which I'm glad that they did, and it worked out the way it did. But honestly, that could have gone a whole different way.
Create a great economy.
And again, if anybody's ever going to be like, they're not giving us equal time,
Like I did
please.
before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever.
You know why that happened? Because when Joe Biden won, the futures actually skyrocketed. So good job.
Seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the
Rebuilding the military, is that why recruitment's at the lowest level that it has been in 20-something years, and it started under your presidency? Would that have anything to do with
only
it?
jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so
Bounce back. Shut up.
as everybody else.
We have one of the strongest job economies in the history of America. But yeah, sure.
President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you.
Yep.
And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump.
This one really gets to him because this is the school that he went to and also wouldn't give his GPA from.
Trump's plan
Wonder why that was.
would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described
Because America wouldn't be very happy with learning that they elected a freaking D- student who only graduated because of who his dad was.
his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country.
Weird. Weird how she's like, oh, well, no, they didn't. They actually said the opposite, and this is why I brought it up. But sure, just because you went there.
It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good.
Honestly, if they had kept with this and she was like she didn't bait him, this would have been a totally different debate.
Solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariff.
He's got such a small, tiny mouth. This is such a big. You got giant teeth on the bottom and just a small mouth. I think that's why he's been doing the Donald Duck shit.
You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication.
Yeah, because when you institute these tariffs, again, great if we're just taking our gas and using it for ourselves, but we're not. We're selling it to other countries. That was the whole thing with the Keystone Pipeline. We were going to sell it to other countries. It was Canadian fuel that was run through our country and then sold at our ports. That is why a lot of people that had a brain just went, nah, you know what? There's a lot of this environmental stuff that kind of matters to us, like rivers and, stuff that makes us sick. And we kind of live here. So maybe we don't want that. But you have enough idiots that buy into everything this idiot says, so they're just like, "Yeah, we didn't get our pipeline. It bankrupted us."
Arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China.
Again, this would have been the perfect time for Kamala to just be like, "That's not how tariffs work."
And
Mr. Trump, I would like to just give you a lesson in basic economics. That's not how tariffs work.
all of the
And the American populace, this is not how tariffs work.
countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their.
That's also what started to raise the prices of all these goods. So anything that you've been saying, inflation this, inflation that, because he's saying that the tariffs were never removed. Gee, or maybe that whole supply chain issue that we had, and then they were charging us more. Oh, maybe that's why, your box of mac and cheese or whatever the hell you were buying cost, a couple shekels more.
We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars.
I mean, I'm not going to be disingenuous. Groceries got high, but I'm also going to be a completely real American who lives in this country and shops for himself. My last few bills have gone down significantly. I'm talking to the point where like I thought that I was using coupons. I was kind of like, what's going on here? And they're just like, oh no, it's just, price adjustments.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation.
Oh, shut up.
They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've
1.9% was the standard. And we just went down to 2.3%. So we're 4. We're 0.4% over what we were at with Donald Trump. And this was at his lowest, by the way, guys. So because we can fact check in real time, I'm also going to say that, oh, hey, look at this. You know how that whole, he didn't inherit an economy. He inherited a bad economy. The whole basis of MAGA. Well, guess what? The economy under Barack Obama, 1.4%. So shut the fuck up with your fake outrage bullshit about the economy. I'm so sick of it. It's the same with the immigrants and the caravans and all this shit. Every 4 years, this is the only time you care about it. And for some reason, the general populace then goes, uh-huh.
we've ever seen in the history of America.
Fuck.
He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's
It's actually shocking how many people believe this whole thing about the Haitian immigrants.
presidency. He ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military. Basically
Are they salt and vinegar?
sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi.
He did.
For what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
Weird. Oh my God. It's almost like she just took away that whole like strongman thing where it's like, it's China. I'm going to make China pay. It's the China flu. I didn't do any of this. It has nothing to do with me. Don't blame me. I am I'm just the head of the free world. Don't blame me.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and
What?
policies like they have. I don't say her because she
What are you talking about?
has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a
See, right here is where he really did start to lose it. And her confidence started building and she's just like, okay, keep saying the dumbest shit ever because I've got something for you.
Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the
21 million? Oh my God! That means by the end of the year, oh no, we're gonna have more immigrants than we're gonna have American people. Oh my God!
21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals.
I'm so scared. I'm gonna go make sure that I double down on it. Oh, the Haitians are coming for me.
That's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane.
I can't even, man. Why? What's the point of sending your kids to like school when this is what happens when we get out? Like, none of us retained anything, and then we all somehow just went, yeah, we're gonna say and believe the dumbest shit, and we're just gonna allow that to rule our country. Cool.
Policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting.
She constantly, it's not like resting bitch face. It's the resting, I don't believe your bullshit face. Like, she always looks like you just, like, you're her kid and she's just like, did you poop on the carpet? And you're just like, no. And she's like,
voting that we need more than
I mean,
6
look,
weeks.
yeah,
But then
she literally
the very next
looks like she does not believe that you said, no, I didn't poop on the carpet.
day, you
Well, him. I didn't poop on the carpet.
reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position
Dude, they're so big. This one's turning into like a pauldron.
so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates.
Wow. Okay. This whole scaremongering about the abortion thing, who does that work for besides your evangelical base? Because that's just blatantly not true. And this idea that there are no complications, like outside, this is the only reason that there are those exceptions. This idea that these frothing at the mouth Democrats, we're waiting for you to kill the babies. Because again, you guys are just like, you guys truly do believe that your opponents are these demonic entities that are just waiting to eat children. You are fucked up and just completely wet. Like, it's not even weird anymore. These people they're way too gone. Like, you want to talk about the insane asylums. These are the people that belong there.
Because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice
Oh man, he really hates Tim Walz because Tim Walz gets under his skin.
presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very
Well then, oopsie poopsie, you didn't really make that one known to the people in the states that were trying to, create these legislation or the legislation against it because, they kind of forgot that.
important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years.
No, not really. Just the evangelical base and this very small minority of people that, for some reason, the Republicans are so afraid of because if they don't get them, then they realize they'll never win elections.
Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal.
Which is kind of weird because if you actually read the Bible, there's nothing about abortion in it. If anything, God is kind of into infanticide in the early books of the Bible. But what do I know? I just read the thing.
Conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have
Somewhat.
thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people.
You do. It's kind of weird that he's the one who's brought that up, and the Democrats and like pollsters or any news organization, they just do not talk about the midterms, and like I don't think they want to specifically because that would kind of give up the game where the election's not as close as everybody thinks. This whole neck and neck thing, nah. The only reason it's even close to neck and neck is because of the Electoral College. If we're talking actual voters and actual enthusiasm, there's no fucking way.
Well, now, it's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Base.
Madam Vice President.
Oh my God. And then he goes out, he's like, they fact checked me. Look, they're so biased. They fact checked me. How dare they? Ugh.
I don't want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here.
I got too riled up and I hit something on my keyboard. I locked my stuff up. Oops.
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation
Totally fucked up my screen. I hate when I fuck up my settings.
to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to
It's almost like weird that they have this absolute stance on abortion, but they can't look at guns the same way. Like, and I know that this is like becoming the most passe fucking argument in politics, but realistically, come on. Like, how inconsistent are you? You don't care about children's lives when you're sending them to school and they have a higher chance of dying by a bullet than they do anything else. Like, come on. And then I'm this free speech absolutist. I'm an absolutist with guns, but anything else that, you know, we that has gone through the courts or anything else, I'm not an absolutist on. You mean I disagree with this.
talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women.
It's almost like Republicans have this weird thing where they're just like, I want my way, and if I don't get my way, I'm gonna cry about it.
Who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care.
Or start a coup.
In an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that.
This is
a 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want.
Yeah, oops, you're not facing Joe Biden, dude, because during the last debate, Biden's answer, I'm pretty sure, was abortion, we should just have situations where we don't even need abortion, and that's how we save Medicare. It was like.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted.
Well, okay, so is it just going to be a unilateral thing that Congress is going to agree on all of a sudden? Because you know how, Congress can get anything done.
Democrats, Republicans, and
don't we have a pending government shutdown right now, like again for like the 4th time?
Everybody else and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue.
What legal scholar? What legal scholar from frickin' what Bible magazine did you get this fucking scholar from? I'm so sick of hearing that.
Has torn our.
It's not true. If you look at the actual polling from people and just, you can even go anecdotal with this one. The majority do not support that. And it's very, very I think that it's super, what's the word I'm looking for? Where it's just like a bunch of dudes that just care about it.
Our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion.
Yeah, against you. it's almost like you, I don't know, shot yourself in the dick. Good job.
Abortion ban? No, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Well, how you voting in Florida then, pal?
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her
This is the most honest thing that he said the entire
to
debate.
get the vote, especially now with the 50-50,
Yep.
essentially 50-50.
I hate to admit it. He's right.
Both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote.
Yeah.
She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again.
You know, I did just have this random thought. How come, like, neither of them he kind of almost did it, but how come you don't bring up the obstructionist Congress and the fact that this is the reason that bills don't get passed? Oh, wait a minute. It's almost like both of you, Democrat and Republican, have had, all of, you had almost 2 years to get some stuff passed and done, and then you had some obstructionist assholes and Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin that were, for some reason constantly voting Republican. That was a little weird and sus, but
By the Supreme Court. So
it's almost like it's a status quo thing.
all these students
We haven't heard lobbyists in a while. The term lobbyists, wonder why.
got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness.
Then you might want to tell him to shut the fuck up then, because he's your vice presidential candidate. Just kind of like how she was the vice president, and you're almost like saying that vice presidents don't matter. They don't do anything. Well, how are you going to fucking blame her for Biden's bullshit then, huh?
J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Well, I mean, I hate to admit when he's right, but like, look at the immigration bill. Like, look at how that went. But at the same time, this idiot, he tanked it specifically because he wanted something to run on, and that was a bad move on his part.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time.
Like, honestly, the boss move would have been to tell them to go do it, and then they could almost make it his legislation, where it's just like, listen, we know that Biden signed this, but a good idea is a good idea,
Time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any
and then try to turn it against him and just be like, come on, liberals, aren't you pissed off about this? But
restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Yeah, nobody's committing. They're not just committing infanticide just because, dude. It's not like actually, you know what? I just went through labor and did all this stuff. Oh, yeah, nah, I'm good. Can you just kind of get it away and just like,
And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family.
Like, that's kind of the thing. They're voting on an issue that they're believing lies about. And it's the same. They believe the just most out there lies.
Family are being denied.
And then that's how they make their decisions. It's so mad. Like, how scared are you as a person? It's sad.
IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not...
I'm so pouty.
The majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions.
He's such a child. He really is. Like if you have kids, right? Doesn't he just remind you of your kid, like where it's like, Tommy, did you take the cookies? No, I didn't take the cookies. Well, you have chocolate all over your face. It's not from the cookies. You got wrappers in your pockets. It's not from the cookies. I didn't do it. You're lying.
About her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond.
No, actually, no. He can say he has to respond, but they can just be like, no, not your time, bud.
Another lie. It's another lie. I have
Oh, is it now?
been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF,
Which is fertilization. Oh my God, he's such the leader. He's like, I mean, my people don't even know what it is, even though I'm the leader of it.
a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people
Oh, I just noticed something. What's up with his hair?
of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's the
the
problem.
question, would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question,
you
would you
could,
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor.
I like how
former
they brought
governor
up
of Virginia.
I'm
The
glad that they
governor
brought her
of
mic
Virginia
on
said,
for
we
this
put the
because it
baby
is kind of
aside, and then we
ridiculous.
determine
Because
what
he
we
was addressing her directly, and then yeah, fine. You can address that to the moderators, but when it's directly to your opponent and you're calling her a liar, and then this is what was pissing me off about the whole format, is because then she wasn't getting a chance to respond to his bullshit every time that he was going on his freaking his responses. Like it was ridiculous.
we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is,
It's almost
why
like
did
this whole open border narrative was kind of a fucking lie.
the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns.
Also, I actually know this answer just because I looked at the numbers leading up to that. So at the beginning of this, like at the end of 2022, going into 2023, they were already kind of gearing up for this kind of thing. And they were talking about record numbers of border crossings. And I remember getting into like a debate about this and having to go and look up the actual numbers. And then I got shocked when I was kind of like, huh. So you're actually telling me that there's less. And there's more, there's more people being deported, but there's actually less as in terms of actual border crossings. And then at the end of 2023, it increased a lot more, which I love this because geopolitics just doesn't exist, guys. Did you know that? That we're the only country in America, we're the only country in the world, guys. Like nothing else exists. Other countries, they're just our little playthings. Yeah. And anything bad that happens to them that would, lead to people coming to our country, totally the fault of the opposition party of our country. Even though, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, you're telling me that investing in places like Venezuela would help, immigration because we would improve their lives. And then oh no. So you're telling me that actually solving immigration would mean by helping these countries, and then we wouldn't get. But then the labor that we could exploit. Oh, but how do we do that? Oh,
drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now.
You know how many liberals were pissed about that bill?
overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human.
Just real quick, the fentanyl epidemic, it starts with doctors and overprescribing pain medication, and we're still at that point of letting the Supreme Court play this game of, well, are we gonna charge the Sacklers? Are the Sacklers just kind of like not responsible? Is this one of those things? Yeah.
Beings. But you know what happened?
But let's not look at the net cause of any of this and the fact that we're an overprescribed nation of fucking psychopaths.
To that bill, Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
Boom. Right there. That's the line. And that one is going viral hard today, guys. So
And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start
but they do. The birds. There's so many birds.
leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you one
That one right there. Yeah.
thing you will not hear him
He hears just from every word that comes out of her mouth from this point on, he hears none of it. He just hears Mr. Trump and then
talk
respond.
about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on
Boom. And then he's just like,
that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me address, though, why did you try to kill that bill and successfully so?
I love
That
this
would have put
part.
thousands of additional
This is my
agents and
favorite part of the
officers on
entire
board.
debate.
First, let me respond to the rallies.
Yeah.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to.
All right, so picture the Trump aide that's like wherever off the side here, who their entire task was to keep him on task. The second that he's like, let me address the rallies, he was just like,
Be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies.
I'm stopping. I can't even. Look at like that.
We
God,
have the
like
biggest-
that is the ultimate gotcha.
Rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because
He's talking about Aurora, Colorado. So I'm sure that people from Aurora, Colorado would also agree that maybe it shouldn't be there.
they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating.
Guys, full disclosure, my dog isn't here because he was taken by Haitian immigrants and they're currently barbecuing right now.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And
Oh my God, I forgot how blatant this was.
it's a shame.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the pets.
As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they
Oh
go
my
is they
God.
like what I say.
Okay, somehow I conflated this entire thing because I thought this all happened at separate points, but man, I should have just started it here and just made this the video.
want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
You know what? I'm so glad that she's doing the thing of hope and all that kind of stuff, but also just like, all right, so the ones who claim to love this country the most are the ones who think that it's the biggest shithole that needs to be saved. Then what do you love about this country exactly?
steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible
ABC, kudos to you for having this prepared, because
reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say,
okay, Grandpa,
here, this is the
people on
someone come get Grandpa and take him back to the nursing home, because for real,
television say my dog was taken and
I saw it on TV. They said my dog was
used for food. So
I just believe it. I believe everything I see on TV.
that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again,
Oh my God, because nothing on Twitter can be fucking faked either, dude. Like this guy, he's just like, I don't believe any of the officials. I don't believe any of the official stories, but I believe this one lady on Twitter.
Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of it.
Yeah, okay.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain.
Yeah, Dick Cheney. Ugh.
Including the endorsement of...
That's one of the endorsements that I just would have, as Kamala Harris, I just would have been like, thanks, but no thanks, bud. I'll take the daughter, but you? Fuck you.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney and
I'm going to join Jon Stewart in just saying, fuck Dick Cheney.
Congress member
That guy
Liz
sucks.
Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said
So
he has contempt for
staring
the
off.
Constitution of the United States. His
Yeah.
former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously.
Yeah, but you only hire the best people. Why would you need to fire them if you only hire the best people?
They did bad things.
Come on,
or bad
man.
job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan.
Dude, they still got your postmaster general. Shut the fuck up.
And the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed,
Oh, my
viciously and
God.
violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they
Dude, his ego just does not let him shut the fuck up. And I have a feeling that this is going to do it again. Like, this is going to be, like, Donald Trump lost Donald Trump the election in 2020. Donald Trump is going to lose Donald Trump the election in 2024.
have done such a poor job. And they
This isn't... He's his own worst enemy. He can't shut up.
never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have
Real quick, here's the update. It just came out today. Inflation, I think that I've already covered this, but I'm going to do it again, is down to 1.7%.
the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president.
No, I'm sorry. No, that was his number.
In history by far.
Just to make
Let me
sure
continue
that
on
I don't
immigration. It
do
was what you
any
wanted
of
to talk
the
about
false
earlier, so let's get
information
back to your
thing, yeah?
deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher.
Okay, so real quick. Yeah, inflation was never the worst that it was in our nation's history. He can just knock that shit off. Yeah, dude. Do you know that inflation in 1942 was at 17.8%? Oh no, that was 10.9% in 42, 17.8% in 1917. It just came down to 2.4% today. So it was at 2.7 before. The Feds are going to be meeting that, and they're going to be lowering interest rates. So this idea that, because when he left office, he was still at 1.9%. He was at almost 2%. So this whole 0.4% inflation, I'm so sick of the narrative that the fucking media runs with it too. Like, where they're just like, yeah, the inflation is bad.
Because of them. They allow.
And then they go, just watched a news story about this too, where they interviewed some guy. They're like, hey, how do you feel about the economy? He's like, I feel good about the economy personally. Like, I'm doing well, but everybody else isn't. And then they went and interviewed other people, and they were getting the same responses where it's like, gee, why is it that everybody's saying that they're personally doing okay, their family's doing okay, they're making more money than they ever have, but the economy's so bad?
Allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in.
Dude, you brought terrorists to Camp David to negotiate with them, and that's realistically why you also share part of the blame to the Afghan soldiers that died. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a fucking fair American that reads the news and then objectively goes, oh, okay, so Biden did make a little bit of a, procedural oopsie. I'm not, because again, do we know all the intelligence? Do we know any of that? Because my best guess is that they told him that he was going to need to get out, that things were escalating very, very quickly. So that's why they needed to get out of there when they did, as quickly as they did. But also my understanding is that with him, he let out a whole bunch of those terrorists that took over the Abrams tanks and all the crap that he was going on about. Like, we just left all our beautiful equipment there, because you let out 5,000 terrorists in a capitulation to the Taliban before we had the chance to get out of there. Great job.
And drug dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes.
They're busting their criminals. What they did, they elected a strongman. They bust their criminals to the border to give them to us. And that's a good thing? At that point, then then you're like, oh, well, they're sending us their worst people. How are you simultaneously going, they're great, they're getting rid of all the bad people, and then sending them here?
In history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they.
Also, hey guys, did you know that felons that are Americans can't vote? Fucking weird. Oh my God. You're telling me that criminals in our own country can't vote? So how would these migrant criminals, what the fuck? Just by merit of them being here, they're going to be able to just be like, yep, vote for Kamala. I'm here raising my hand. My vote counts.
They've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and
actually, here we go.
Through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created.
Violent crime from January to March dropped 15.2% to the same period in 2023, while murders fell 26.4% and reported rapes decreased by 25.7%. Aggravated assaults decreased during that period when compared to last year by 12.5%. Robberies also fell by 17.8%. But go on.
Turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's
This dude's like a bird. Can we just from watching him, he's like a fucking bird, like a parakeet. He can't not just engage. And on top, he's either like a parakeet or just like your, worst kid. Because I've met 5-year-olds that have better attention spans than this, and that's today. I'm talking about iPad kids.
Let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
I mean, that's not going to happen if they allow this merger to go through, so.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by
See what I mean?
them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of
Thank you. Oh, my God, it's almost like you realized, we're giving him like 10 extra minutes. We need to tone this one down, guys.
weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize.
He did. I didn't say that. I didn't say. Yeah, you did, dude. You know, when you're being hyperbolic and you're trying to be funny, you tend to do this thing where it's on camera, and we have it as like a long-term recording. So it's kind of weird that you try to deny this stuff when we have your exact words on camera.
The Department of Justice against his political.
I don't understand how anybody on the right just goes, that's fake, when it's like, dude.
Enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in
Nope.
your last run for president.
Shut up.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about
Dude, look at you.
democracy.
Look at
I'm
this.
a threat to democracy.
Look at this. He
They're
doesn't
the
even have a
threat
chip
to
on his ear.
democracy.
He doesn't
Russia,
even
Russia,
have like
Russia invest-
like Tito from Oliver and Company. He doesn't even have that.
We do have a lot
that
to get
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then
This
why
is
have
where
so
I was
many of
talking
your
about,
policy
like the little bit of the
positions
boring stuff that I might be skipping
my values
over.
have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in
But
Pennsylvania.
I'm trying to be fair.
I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking.
Okay, this idea that politicians cannot change their positions is fucking insane. You're telling me that a person can't, change? What? You're telling me that the first thing that comes out of that person's mouth, they are now permanent. That is their permanent stance. That's how you must judge them.
Fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act.
I mean, are we going to do the same thing with him and his abortion stance? Like, dude.
Which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have
goofy-looking
had
motherfucker.
the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved.
Oh, he's so pissed that he can't say that.
And was able to buy our first home.
I was raised by a nanny who was kind of middle class because we underpaid her. We also didn't give her vacation time.
When I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a...
Sorry. I missed that the first time. Oh, more of that, please. All of that, please. Remind the people just how bad of a businessman this guy is.
Value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted.
If you haven't noticed, I'm trying to just mirror what he's doing with his face.
By her stepfather. And my
no, I'm very uncomfortable and my stomach hurts.
Focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people.
You know, this is the kind of stuff where, like, I kind of feel like she's like a teacher almost. Maybe the last time I kind of felt like this, I was like in 6th or 7th grade, and I had a really good teacher, and like this is the kind of stuff where you're like, yeah, and like you're a good teacher, and you do care, and I want to be a better person because you're inspiring me because you seem like a good person.
Down, it's in lifting people up.
Yeah.
I intend to be that president.
I mean, even if this is just words, like these are the right words, guys. Like there's positivity. It's not this whole they're eating your dogs. The immigrants are eating your cats and dogs. Meanwhile, she's just like, yeah, I'm trying to be more hopeful. Like, can we not be dicks to each other?
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens. And
No. I like how he tried to call him a builder. He was a real estate tycoon. He wasn't a builder. I mean, if you want to try and use a different,
great father, and I learned a lot from him, but I was given a fraction.
No, he wasn't.
Of that, a tiny
No, he wasn't. Oh my God, Fred Trump was not a good father to you. You could even see how much he despised your ass.
And I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure his mom hated him too.
So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever.
Yeah, she has.
She gave all that stuff up.
She has been against defund the police. Good job, Trump.
Very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, wow.
She went out.
Okay, so you see how she just responded there? It is because, like, it's not going to play the same way because Sam Cedar brought this up earlier where he was talking about like only political junkies understand that the actual context of where that came from. That wasn't a Tulsi Gabbard thing. That was from the Mike Pence, Kamala Harris vice presidential debate where he kept trying to walk over her and she said, "Excuse me, I'm talking." And it's one of those things where it's just kind of understood that women have always kind of had an uphill battle, specifically in a male-dominated world, of using their voice. So what he just did there, he actually kind of looked like the bigger dick, but whatever.
She went out in Minnesota.
If you think that he projected strength with that, okay.
And wanted to let criminals that killed people.
Because you have to remind yourself that he technically interrupted the moderators and Kamala's next question to make this little tirade. So.
Burned down Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get him out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of.
And he started this off by talking about how much his dad didn't give him, and how he's a great businessman and blah 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 blah.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking.
Shit. I almost spat all over my computer. Oh, fuck me. Okay. I forgot about that one.
In Pennsylvania.
Trying to do transgender people in prison.
Yeah.
Okay,
If she won
man,
the
I'm
election,
sorry.
Fracking in Pennsylvania will end on
What?
day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody.
Are they just doing like transgender experiments in prison now? Like, come here, Jose. I need to see you for a minute.
Has ever done before. They took when they
No way, Jose.
took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the
Oh,
prices were
fuck.
going up the roof. They
Okay.
immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she
He's been recently saying how gas is over $6 a gallon and blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's coming down to almost $2, like the higher $2. It's still 3 something. It's still like the last time I was just out today and it was 3.28. So
won the election, the day after that
but again, I live in an area where it's gonna be a little bit more expensive.
election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take
I'm a big fan of solar, but this is bad.
400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment.
to.
They
We're
should-
out of time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. He's just
Lindy, we
rambling.
have an
Shut up,
election in just
Grandpa.
56
Somebody
days.
come and get him.
And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January
Go to
6th, you
commercial
told your
soon.
supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what
I'm gonna be splitting this into 2 parts, just so you know. I'm gonna have the front half of the debate and the back half of the debate after the commercial break.
played out of the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message.
Unless they just edited this whole thing together, then yeah, we're in this for the long haul.
Telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and
Did they? How about your tweets before that? Here,
patriotically.
while you're doing
and
this,
nobody on
I'm
the
just
other
gonna
side was
remind
killed.
everybody
Ashley
of
Babbitt was shot by an
his
out-of-control
exact
police
tweet on
officer
January 6th.
that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace.
It's
but
a
we didn't
disgrace.
do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David? When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that
You
question.
were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything
Dude, I just realized that this guy with sleepy eyes, Chuck Todd, is so happy with the fake voter tabulation process that he can't even get the words out straight. Sad to watch.
you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or
I
no?
had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again,
Stand back and stand by.
it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just
no, because they did that whole hearings thing, and because I watched the whole thing, and it was a lot. I wasn't even doing this at that point. I was just watching it just because I'm an asshole. So, but when they were doing that, they started like at the very beginning, and this is why it took so long, because they showed minute by minute footage of what was happening and how he was responding. At one point, Nancy Pelosi even kind of just insinuated, she's just like, I can't get a hold of him. I don't know what to do.
2 weeks ago, her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible.
Man, he really hates Nancy Pelosi's daughter.
For what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker.
True, and yeah. Way to try and deflect, but again, I'm going to keep reiterating this, and I'm going to do it until the very end of the election, possibly until he's just not alive anymore. This man's a child. This man is what happens when you're not a good parent to your child. This is what they grow into. And like, I'm talking like this is what they will be up till the very end. Just selfish, egotistical brats. He's a fucking brat, dude. Like, he's a little whiny, sniveling brat who actually, I mean, the diaper thing tracks, so he's even got a poopy diaper. Poopy diaper Trump.
I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand.
Sorry about that. I need to stretch.
Stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome.
Yep.
And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate.
Do you know how, like, this is I think why I'm also pissed about the authoritarian aspects of Donald Trump is it doesn't even come from true authoritarianism. It comes from his ego and just not being able to accept that he lost. Literally, it's the sore loser syndrome. You ever played a video game with the guy that just like throws your controller? Like, I've had that happen. Like, I used to be that guy, except I wouldn't do it to my friend's shit. But calm down a lot more. But yeah, you know how it is to be playing a game with a friend and have them be a sore loser. It's tons of fun. So much fun to have those people in your lives.
Has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term.
The only time it's okay to throw a controller is there's no real never throw your controllers, guys, especially the new, like, if we're talking like about these, don't, especially because like, stick drift is a real thing with these. So.
Term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jess.
Your favorite people.
See, all of these people, they covered it.
All of these people are totally my propaganda machine. They debunked it.
They go an extra sentence. They will see it was
Oh my God, at least be genuine about it. Dude, you have David Muir right there. Just be like, David, did that happen? Was it real? Because or is it a debunking?
It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this: you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border?
There we
How come
go.
he's not doing it?
There we go.
And I'll tell you what I would do.
He can't
I would be
shut
very
up.
proud to do it.
He
I would
can't
say
shut
we
up
would both
because
leave this
This is hilarious because he has literally been told by his advisors that he's only good on the economy and immigration. Those are his two biggest winning issues. So that's why he's just hyper fixated on
This
that.
debate right now, I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills.
I'm just going to remind people that the polls that came out directly after this put her up by 67% as far as people who thought that she won this. And that's including Republicans.
They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is...
No, that's not how it works. And he did pretty much the thing closest to what you can do unilaterally as a president with executive order. But go on.
Closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate...
I mean, Tim Pool thought... if he keeps saying that, then Tim Pool is just like, then I was right. Yes, he did win in a landslide. Yes, it was totally stolen.
You have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short. Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
there it is.
sarcastically. You know
There
that.
it is.
It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker, we didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost.
Because
if you look at the fact...
God damn it. Every once in a while, it's nice to have this pause button so I can shut him the fuck up. No. You know what's funny about this is how wrong he is. Because what happened is judges that were appointed by him, they were given these cases, and when they said that he didn't have standing, that just meant that it's like, no, we have nothing to base this on because there is no fraud. That means that there was no crime to prosecute. That means that they kept looking at this and going, the recounts have been done, the certification is taking place, we're through. There is no merit to this case. That's what not having standing means. On top of that, a lot of your attorneys got threatened with action or with judicial action if they kept bringing these cases back. That's why they kind of just said, I think they got you on this one, dude.
And I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania.
They've been saying this for over 4 years. Mike Pillow, Mike Lindell, same shit. Like, if you guys are still listening to that and think that there's even a modicum of honesty, then I got a bridge to sell you.
And I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right
It's in Baltimore.
now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is...
You know what? Again, another big fuck you, Mr. Trump. You know, when our nation kind of started declining, is when you took away regulations for things like deli meats and, anything processed like that. And you also allowed these companies to have lax regulations and kind of just regulate themselves. Well, guess what's happening now? People are dying from deli meat. There's a mass listeria breakout from one of the it wasn't just like a small little meat processor. It was a huge meat processing conglomerate who also happened to be like the market leader of like quality, like the one that would pride themselves on being like, this is the best meat. Come and get our meat. It is much better than the Oscar Mayer or the Sara Lee, which I fucking agree with. I hate to say it. I used to love that, but now I can't even eat it anymore. So just because, I don't trust it. I'm not gonna, especially because this guy got rid of the regulations that would make sure that it doesn't happen again.
It's dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election.
I've got this very bad feeling that we're not doing the commercial breaks. I'm going to have to chop this into two parts.
That was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top
Oh, it's so weird when he's talking about witch hunts and, prosecuting your political opponents and going, the court cases. He's literally threatening the same crap for nothing, except he actually committed crimes. The people that, worked under him committed crimes. Remember that Russiagate thing? Yeah. His people who worked for him did get arrested for colluding with Russia. So that wasn't a nothing burger. Weird.
Top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Oh, hell yeah.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear
That is such a killer line.
about that. And clearly he is having a very
Oh,
difficult
that one.
time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who
Ain't wrong.
attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the
He looks like a frog.
ability to not
Whoop! I saw
be
something.
confused about fact. That's deeply
When he looked up, oh man, that's what I should edit. I should just edit a little tongue getting a fly.
troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Speaking of flies, just real quick, the one thing I remember about the debate with Pence was the fly landing on him and just standing there.
Let me just
And he kept talking.
about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected
Yep,
men.
here we
They
go.
call him a strong.
Yeah, see, he keeps bringing up Viktor Orban, this this dictator who still tries to pretend that he's, got a democratic republic.
Man, he's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president.
You know why he doesn't have the guy in Brazil backing him anymore? Because that guy also got ousted, and then Brazil did this weird thing where they're like, oh, you tried to start a coup, you tried to take over, and you tried to sow dissension in our politics? Well, guess what? You can never run again. Get the hell out of the country, and now he is on the run, so... Hey, look at Brazil. One of them shithole South American countries doing more than America.
They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
What exactly is going on with North Korea outside of North Korea is just doing what North Korea does, which is nothing except for just threaten us, every half a year or so, where we're gonna do missile tests, we're gonna do them, we're gonna do missile tests. Boom, they blow up in the ocean. Okay.
And Biden put it back on day.
Pretty sure that they actually got close to doing something at the DMZ, like with the South too. And then, oh, wait a minute, what did they do? Oh, that's right, they sent a small contingent of athletes together, and they got to do like a little symbolic thing with the South Koreans and
Day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let
yeah, good. Again, good.
the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world.
Yes, because that was a NATO fucking project. And I'm just going to say it. I'm not worried about that because, yeah, Russian land. Don't care. Don't live there.
Look,
Fuck.
Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is
For somebody who's America first, you sure are worrying about other people's shit.
Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what?
They haven't thrown him out of office. They didn't throw him out of office. See, you're a fucking moron. He's still president. He is still in office. What he did is he retired. You know, he did this thing where he put himself above his country and then he put his country above himself is what I was saying. I was projecting onto this stupid asshole. Ugh. Dude, do you not understand what retirement is? Oh, that's right, because you have such an ego that you can't go out like this. Like, ugh. If this motherfucker comes back in 2028, that's going to be the saddest shit ever.
Secret, he hates her. He can't stand her. But he got
like that right there. He hates her. He can't stand her. Did he hear that just from one of his aides? And he's just like, I know something you don't know.
14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes.
Fuck.
And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
I swear to God, you will have arguing him, listening to him debate is like listening to a child.
Your time is
I
up.
know I keep saying it, but it's so true.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages.
Okay, well.
Who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians.
Oh, weird. It's almost like she added more that, the far left is like, oh, well, Joe Biden doesn't say enough and like these leftist politicians don't say enough. So when she actually says the thing where she's just like, no, there needs to be a better way forward for this where there is a two-state solution, but we also don't just abandon our interests in Israel. But according to the far left, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to just not give them any weapons at all, and that's just going to fix everything. Then they don't have the weapons to do the bombing. Then Hamas is just going to go, all right, let's do the two-state solution since they just they don't got the weapons no more.
Civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead, nearly 100 hostages.
I just love how many people think they have the answers, but then when they actually get called on it and asked what is the answer, they're like,
remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization,
whether you like it or not,
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people.
Again, this open air prison, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, not the way to fucking do that, huh?
People who are simply attending
It's almost like, crossing over on sovereign land. It's kind of like flying in the face of your argument that, since they had the right to do that, then technically Israel also has the right to do that.
concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that
right there is more than any modern politician has given us in the past year. But still, they are doing the protest shit. Still, they are talking about the Arab community in Michigan that's not going to vote for her because she didn't go far enough. Still. But you know what they did? I happened to catch just a little broadcast that was watching this. It was a leftist broadcast, and they were, once Trump started talking, it turned into a cackle fest. Instead of listening to him and just being like, dude, he is objectively so much worse for this, they just laughed it off. So who fundamentally is the serious one then? Who really cares about the plights of the Palestinian people when you just ignore blatantly that the other side has said that they're just going to unilaterally bomb these people and that they're with Bibi, that they want to take that land. But Trump's so silly.
This war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out.
There we go.
And so we will continue to work around the clock on
That's
that.
the best plan I've
work
heard so
around
far.
the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution.
Oh,
and in that
weird.
solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I
Boom.
will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself.
And that's all they heard. They didn't hear that first part. They just like, here, I will even go back just a little bit here.
Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution...
See? Like, the practical solution of going, like, kind of going back to what it was a little bit before, but then you have the far left that just goes, well, it's still an open-air prison. We need to do something about that. We need to humanitarian rights for Gaza, and we need to make sure that the borders are open completely. And we just, it's like every little like they have all of these rules for engaging with them and what would make them happy, when it's kind of like, maybe we should keep them alive first and then, give them some places to live and then maybe talk about the open-air prison and the whole Hamas. Yeah.
There must be...
But fine, we need to do it all now. Now, and if we don't, then fuck you, I hold vote.
Security for the Israeli people and Israel, and
how I
an
see
equal
this
measure for the
shit.
Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran, and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel.
How dare
But
you.
We must have a two-state solution
How
where
dare
we
you,
can
you're
rebuild
anti-Palestinian.
Gaza, where the Palestinians have security.
Sorry, I'm making light of this because honestly, like, when I heard the response to this specific clip today, I couldn't believe that they were still pulling that shit, and I was just like, you know what? Jesus Christ, this is why right here.
Determination and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would
It
have
never would have
started.
happened. Yeah, see, that's just not a fucking answer.
If I were president, Russia would
Good
have
for
never,
you.
ever,
She asked, how would you do that now?
I know Putin very well. He would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed
Wrong. 2022 there was.
millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not
No, that was a principled stance on not listening to a genocidal fucking dictator.
exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way,
No, she hates a genocidal dictator who is using his strongman ability to stay in power.
She
he
hates
strong-armed his entire population into putting him back in power. What the fuck are you talking
the
about?
Arab population, because
That's
the
why you love the
whole
guy.
place is going to get blown up. Arabs,
See?
Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror. Horrible
Spheres of terror. I forgot about that. Terror.
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 No money.
Dude, what is with Republican politicians not being able to say the word terror? You had George W. Bush, and I know Texas accent, whatever the fuck. Terror. But they both say it pretty much the same way. Terrorist. Except he's a terrorist. Terrorist. It's terror. 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 Do you know about terror? I know about a Terra, like, I know about Terra. There's Terra Pokemon where there's, like, Terra Charizard. And, yeah, some fucking nerdy shit.
It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a
Terra.
rich nation.
can't
And
even.
now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around.
More
Look
terror.
at what's
Terror
happening
everywhere.
with the
It's so
Houthis
terror.
and Yemen. Look at what's
They're
going on in the
terrorists.
Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war
Does he know that the word is terror?
with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Wow, that was like the most debatey I've ever seen him because he didn't answer the question at all in the slightest, which again, Donald Trump, woohoo, yeah, but like that ending part there, that was just kind of like, oh yeah, now we're back to politics.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he...
Do you ever think that he hears that and goes, I shouldn't have said that? Or do you just think, nope, she's wrong. That's a lie.
Head of Putin.
I'm
that
thinking it's
he
B.
can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding
Nope.
and
No. You shut the, like that, for how many times they let him just go on and ramble, for them to even try and fucking interrupt, like, I get it. We're on a time crunch. We got to get to whatever commercial break. You know, you got to sell your Cialis somewhere. But for them to do that shit to her after they let him go, give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute, and we'll give you a minute to respond. And then she gets none. Again, I'll bring up the time, like how much time was given to him. He had 42 minutes. She had 38 minutes. That's a pretty large gap of talking.
respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's
Yeah,
the one.
see? Fuck, that pisses me off. The fact that they're just like, nope.
That caused it. That's weak on national security
No,
by allowing
no.
every nation
God.
last month for the year, 168 different
shit.
countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest?
Because the Keystone Pipeline was Canadian oil sent down the pipeline to Louisiana to be sold overseas. What Joe Biden decided to do was open more fracking fields and get more of the American liquid gold to make us less dependent on the foreign entity that is Saudi Arabia and OPEC or APEC or whatever the fuck. I'm too pissed off to fucking think. But that is why.
Pipeline.
And on top of it, there was the whole, environmental part of that where even you had, I think Kristi Noem in South Dakota kind of went, yeah, that would have fucked up a bunch of our rivers and a bunch of our stuff, but money.
Anywhere in the world, going to Germany and all over Europe, because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
thank you.
What really disgusts me are the people that go to Kristi Noem events and they honest to God are just like, yeah, she's for me. She would totally not vote to keep lead in our pipes or anything like that. Or stuff that would kill us. Not if it just gave her an extra buck. No, she's for the people.
We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Alrighty. Well, okay. So I guess part one is going to be the long one. So that was part one of the debate. Yeah, it's definitely like some of the main highlights definitely took place in the first hour, but yeah, this is kind of where he really starts to lose it, and I think that the American people are they're seeing Kamala Harris for their first time, and they, in contrast to him, immediately are just going like, "Oh, this is a world of difference." On top of the fact that anybody that was like watching Joe Biden's debate and like maybe that's the only thing that they kind of caught of it, like of his like the exposure of like the first part of this election season, then they're seeing this as a total shift. And I'm talking like the biggest shift where they're like, "Oh, this is an actual person who can talk and isn't going to die in office." Like nice. We don't have to worry about age. So alrighty, well, look out for part two. It is going to be releasing right after this if you just want to go right into it. But you know the deal. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, trying to get to 1,000. So yeah, I will definitely see you in this next one.